Rain. Cold, biting rain that doesn't just fall, it slashes through the air, drenching everything it touches. The forest breathes in slow, heavy gasps, each tree shuddering under the weight of the storm. Wind howls like a wounded beast, twisting through the branches, carrying with it the copper tang of blood, and the faintest echo of a heartbeat that's not supposed to exist anymore. Aria runs, barefoot. Her skin burns against the frozen mud as she stumbles through the night, lungs tearing with each breath. The world is a blur of shadows, roots clawing at her feet, branches lashing across her arms. But she doesn't stop. She can't. Every instinct in her body screams. And still, somewhere deep beneath the fear, another pulse stirs, hot, electric, alive, something ancient whispering beneath her skin, begging to be let out. She doesn't dare, not now. Thunder cracks overhead, lighting the forest in violent flashes. And for a heartbeat, she sees them. Eyes, too many eyes, glowing amber, silver, and red, watching, waiting, the pack, her past, her curse. Her body jerks forward before her mind catches up, adrenaline taking control. Her heart pounds so loud she can barely hear the storm anymore. It's just that sound, that pounding rhythm that feels almost not human. She ducks beneath a fallen log, chest heaving. The ground is slick beneath her palms, blood mixing with rain, dripping down her arm from the wound she refuses to look at. The mark burns. 3 slashes that shouldn't still glow, but do. A faint silver shimmer that pulses in time with her heartbeat. She presses her hand against it, whispering to herself, voice shaking. Not now, not again. Please. But the forest answers. The wind stills for a second, heavy, waiting. Then, a growl. Deep, predatory, so close she can feel it vibrate through the ground. Aria's eyes widened, her throat tightens. Every nerve in her body is screaming, move, don't think, just move. She scrambles to her feet, slipping on the mud, her breath ragged. Lightning flickers again, and for just a moment she catches the shape behind her. A shadow, massive, loping on all fours. Too fast to be human, too deliberate to be a beast. The world narrows to sound, rain, heartbeat, thunder, breath. She doesn't see the roots until they snag her ankle. She hits the ground hard, her shoulder slamming into a rock, pain flaring like fire down her arm. And that's when she hears it. Not just the growl, but the voice beneath it, a whisper, low, ancient, familiar. Aria. Her name, spoken like a secret. The air leaves her lungs. Her blood runs cold. Because that voice belongs to something that shouldn't remember her, something that should have been dead. The rain slows, or maybe time just breaks. Because when she lifts her head, through the storm and the darkness she can feel it, that weight, that presence pressing against her chest. She knows she's not alone. And this time, it's not just the forest watching. Something's hunting her, not just for her blood, but for the truth buried inside her veins. The storm seems to breathe with her. Each inhale drags the mist closer. Each exhale pulls the thunder farther away. Aria forces herself up, hand gripping the slick bark of a tree. Her body shakes. Her clothes cling to her like a second skin, soaked and heavy. But there's something else moving under her skin. A faint shimmer of light crawling across her veins, glowing silver white like molten moonlight. She bites her lip, hard, to hold it back, because she knows what happens when she doesn't. She's seen it before. The fire that's not fire, the light that burns everything it touches. She takes a step, then another. Every movement is painful. Every breath feels borrowed. Behind her, another growl rolls through the storm, closer, and this time she doesn't wait. She runs. Her body moves before she can think, every muscle remembering what it means to survive. The forest flashes by, dark, endless, alive. The ground trembles, the rain becomes a roar, and still, That sound follows her. Heavy, measured, a predator's rhythm. She can't tell if it's one creature or many anymore. The shadows move too fast, darting between the trees. The scent of wet fur cuts through the storm, sharp and wild. She veers left, down a slope slick with moss, her feet sliding, catching herself just in time. Lightning tears open the sky, revealing a stretch of river ahead, swollen, violent, uncrossable. Her heart sinks. She's trapped. The growls multiply. They're surrounding her now. She turns slowly, rain dripping from her lashes, and for the first time, she sees them. Wolves. Massive. Muscles rippling beneath soaked fur. Eyes burning through the downpour. And behind them, something else. Something taller, cloaked in darkness. Half shifted. The storm bends around him. The air thickens. She doesn't know his name. Not yet. But her soul does. Because every part of her that's human trembles. And every part that's not answers. He steps forward. The world seems to hold its breath. "Aria," he says again, voice rough as gravel, soft as sin. "I told you once, you can't run from what you are." Her pulse spikes, her throat burns, and still, she lifts her chin. Defiance even when she's breaking. "Watch me," lightning flashes, her mark ignites, silver fire crawling up her arm, spilling into the air like living light. The wolves flinch, even he steps back, eyes narrowing, hunger and something else twisting in his stare. The storm explodes again, thunder shaking the ground. She throws out her hand, and the world responds. The trees bow, the earth cracks, but she can't hold it. The power's too wild, too raw, too hers. The light flickers, dies. And in the silence that follows, she hears him move. Fast. 1 second, he's 10 feet away. The next, his hand is on her wrist, fingers gripping her pulse. "Enough," he growls. His skin is cold, his breath hot against her ear. And gods, she hates the way her heart still races for him. "You'll tear yourself apart," he murmurs, "and you'll burn everything with you." She twists, struggling, but he's stronger. Her voice breaks. "Then let me burn." He doesn't let go. For a heartbeat, a single fragile heartbeat, their eyes lock. Something shifts. The rain slows. The thunder fades. And for the first time in a long time, she sees him not as the hunter, but as something else. Something wounded. Something just as lost as her. Her breath catches. The world feels too small, too sharp. Every drop of rain hits like a drumbeat against her skin. She can feel his heartbeat through his grip. Steady, heavy, dangerously calm. "Why are you here?" she whispers. "Because you called me," he says. She shakes her head. "I didn't." "You did. The moment you bled under the storm, the moment the mark woke, I felt it." The words hit her harder than the rain. Because deep down, part of her already knew. The connection. The pull. The reason her nightmares always ended with his eyes staring back at her. He releases her wrist slowly, the warmth of his hand fading, leaving only cold. "You shouldn't have come back to these woods," he says, voice low. "And yet, here you are." Lightning flickers again, and for a second, she sees the truth in his face. The exhaustion, the restraint, the way his jaw tightens like he's fighting something inside himself. He's not her enemy. Not exactly, but he's no savior either. She takes a step back, chest rising and falling too fast. The mark on her arm still glows, faintly pulsing. He watches it like a man watches a flame he's afraid to touch. "They'll come for you," he says softly. "They already have." She turns away, scanning the tree line. The wolves are gone. The silence feels wrong, like the world is holding its breath, waiting for the next move. Her legs shake, exhaustion creeping in. The adrenaline is fading, leaving only the ache, the chill, the question burning in her chest. "Why now?" she whispers. After all this time, why me? His answer is a whisper carried by the storm. Because you're the last of your kind. Her stomach drops. The words echo. The last. The wind picks up again, tearing through the clearing, scattering the rain like shards of glass. And in that moment, standing there, soaked and trembling, facing the one creature who should hate her most, Aria finally realizes the truth. She's not running from the pack. She's running from destiny itself. If your heart's already racing, stay. Because this isn't just another story. This is Wild Moon Narratives. And tonight, you'll learn what it means to be forbidden by blood and bound by fate. The night trembles. Rain slams against the forest like fists. Each drop is cold enough to sting, slicing through the air as Aria stumbles backward, her bare feet sinking into mud slick with blood and pine needles. Her pulse thrashes in her throat. The scent of iron burns her lungs. She doesn't dare breathe too loud. The creature is still out there, somewhere between the shadows and the thunder. The growl comes again, closer now, deep and guttural, a sound that doesn't belong to anything human. Her heart clenches. She turns. A blur of movement, something huge bursts from the tree line, claws, teeth, eyes like coals. The beast is almost beautiful in its horror, its fur slick with rain, its breath steaming in the cold. She barely has time to scream before it lunges. And then, another sound splits the night, a roar that shakes the trees. Two shadows collide, fur against fur. Lightning flashes, illuminating a violent dance of claws and power. One creature is darkness itself, fur black as the void between stars. The other, mottled with streaks of shadow that seem to move even when the light dies. The ground shakes under them. The scent of ozone and blood fills the storm. Aria stumbles backward, clutching her arm. Her claws had only half shifted, the mark still glowing faintly. Betraying her. She should run. God, she should run. But she can't look away. The fight is savage, primal. Every strike echoes through her chest. One beast howls, the sound too human to ignore. The other answers with a growl that feels like an earthquake rolling through the bones of the earth. And then, silence. Just the rain, just her heartbeat. The black wolf stands alone in the clearing, chest heaving, fur gleaming wet in the flickering light of a dying storm. The other lies still, fading into the shadows it came from. Aria's breath catches. She steps back, trembling, mud sucking at her feet. Her body screams at her to move, but she's frozen. The wolf turns, those eyes, golden, piercing, burning. They find her through the veil of rain, steady and unblinking. And then, before her eyes, the impossible happens. The air ripples, bones shift, muscles contort. The sound of transformation tears through the night, wet, raw, and real. In a blink, the beast is gone, and in its place stands a man, tall, broad shoulders glistening with rain, bare skin marked with faint scars that speak of battles no one lived to tell. His hair, dark and heavy, falls across his brow in wet strands. The storm seems to hesitate around him, like even the rain doesn't dare touch him without permission. He is the kind of beautiful that hurts, the kind that makes the air around him dangerous. He looks at her, not like she's a stranger, not like prey, but like a memory he never buried. His voice is low, rough-edged. You shouldn't be here. She flinches. That voice, she knows it. Or maybe she's only dreamed of it. You... Her voice cracks, her throat raw. You know me? He takes a step closer. Rain slides down the hard line of his jaw. I've known you since the first moonbled. Her stomach twists. His words feel like a curse, like a truth she doesn't want. I don't understand. You don't have to. His eyes drop to the faint glow pulsing under her skin, where her claws had failed to hide the shimmer of silver. Your bleeding power, little one, Every creature within 10 miles can smell it. She swallows hard, instinctively covering the marks on her arm. I didn't mean to. I know. The way he says it makes her chest tighten. He doesn't look away. Don't blink. There's something unreadable in his expression, part warning, part wonder. She wants to ask who he is, wants to ask how he found her, but the words die in her throat. Because some part of her, something buried deep in her bones, already knows. Lightning splits the sky again, casting him in light. The gold in his eyes flares brighter, almost burning. He's not just a wolf, he's the alpha. The one the others whisper about. The one who rules the shadows and never bows. Kael. The name rolls through her head like a heartbeat she can't control. He steps closer, just enough for her to feel the heat radiating from his skin. It's almost unbearable in the cold rain. She can smell him now. Smoke, wild pine, and something electric, something dangerous that feels like temptation itself. Why were you out here? He asks, voice quieter now. I was running. From what? She hesitates. Her lips tremble. Everything. A faint smirk flickers across his mouth, the kind that doesn't reach his eyes. Then you've come to the wrong forest. She should be afraid. She is afraid. But the sound of his voice does something else too. It steadies her, even as it unnerves her. Her pulse slows, though her hands still shake. I didn't ask for your help, she whispers. And yet, you got it. His tone sharpens, not arrogant, just certain. He kneels beside her without waiting for permission. His fingers, rough and calloused, brush against the wound on her arm. She jerks at the touch. Don't, she breathes. Hold still. He presses his palm to the cut. Heat blooms instantly, searing and soothing at once. She gasps. The light beneath her skin flares, silver meeting gold. For a heartbeat, it feels like the storm itself pauses to watch. Then it's gone. The wound closes. Only a faint shimmer remains, pulsing with the echo of his touch. She stares at him. What are you? He looks up, his gaze locking onto hers, not flinching, not human. The one keeping you alive. For a moment, neither of them moves. The forest breathes around them, rain hissing through leaves, thunder rolling distant now. Her heartbeat slows, steadying against the rhythm of the storm. He rises to his feet, towering above her. You need to leave before the others find the scent. The others? The things that came after you weren't alone. She stiffens. The memory of claws and darkness flashes behind her eyes. Why are they hunting me? She asks. He hesitates, jaw tightening. Because you're not supposed to exist. His words strike like lightning. Sudden, violent, true. She shakes her head. That's not possible. Isn't it? He steps closer again, lowering his voice. You think I fought through a storm just to deliver riddles? Then tell me why. He exhales, the sound heavy. Because you carry something older than any pack, something the rest of us were told to destroy before it awakened. Her breath catches. She doesn't understand. And yet, deep down, she does. You mean the mark? He nods once, eyes flicking to the faint silver lines now dimming on her arm. That light is a beacon, and there are creatures, alphas, who'd rather see the world burn than let that power return. And you, she whispers, which one are you? His jaw clenches. The one standing between you and them, for now. For now? Don't make me regret it. There's a weight in his tone, not a threat but a truth. The silence stretches between them, thick as smoke. Finally, she says quietly, Why help me at all, if I'm what you were told to destroy? Kael looks at her for a long time, his expression unreadable. Because, he says finally, voice low enough that it almost disappears into the rain, I've watched enough people die for lies. The wind shifts, the rain softens. For the first time, She notices the faint scars running along his chest, claw marks, old and jagged. He's not untouchable. He's been broken before. That realization hits her harder than fear. He turns away, glancing toward the dark stretch of trees behind him. They'll come again, stronger. You can follow me, or you can keep running. Either way, this forest won't protect you. She hesitates, staring at the place where the other beast had fallen. The mud is empty now. The shadows are too deep. She doesn't have a choice. Fine, she says, voice trembling despite herself. Lead the way. He doesn't smile, but something flickers in his eyes, something almost like approval. Stay close. He shifts again, the sound of bone and sinew tearing through the rain. The wolf returns, massive, black, glistening under the silver light of the storm. He looks back at her once, golden eyes meeting hers, and then he runs. She follows. Through the rain, through the dark, through a forest that feels alive with whispers of things long forgotten. Her breath burns in her throat, but she doesn't stop, because for the first time, running doesn't feel like fear. It feels like being pulled towards something she was never meant to escape. Something, or someone, that might just be her undoing. The storm had passed, but the forest still breathed like something alive, whispering, restless, uneasy. The path Kael led her through twisted downward, following the sound of rushing water until the trees opened into stone. Hidden beneath an overhang, a narrow mouth of darkness waited, a cave veiled by moss and time. He pushed the vines aside and stepped through first, his body brushing the stone as if it knew him. She hesitated, feeling the press of the forest at her back. The rain had stopped, but the air was thick with the memory of running. Inside, the air was warmer, close, damp, heavy with earth and smoke. A faint orange glow flickered deeper within. He had been here before. This wasn't just shelter, it was his refuge. The space opened wide enough to breathe. Walls carved by age, floor softened by pelts and ash. A low fire burned at the center, fed by dry wood that must have been waiting for him. The flames threw shadows up along the walls, moving like ghosts in a quiet rhythm. Kael motioned her toward the heat but said nothing. He crouched near the fire, tending to it with the same quiet control she had seen in his fight. Precise, unhurried, every motion deliberate. She stood near the entrance, dripping, shivering, unsure whether to move closer or stay pressed against the cool stone. He didn't look up when he spoke. "You're cold." She blinked, her voice small. "I'm fine." "You're shaking." Her jaw tightened. "That doesn't mean I'm cold." That earned her a glance, brief, sharp, golden. Then he tossed a thick fur across the floor beside her. "You can argue with the fire if you'd rather freeze." Something inside her almost smiled at that, but it vanished before it reached her lips. She moved closer. Lowering herself to the ground, the warmth bit at her skin, pulling color back into her fingers. For a long time, the only sound was the soft crackle of flame and the faint echo of water dripping from the ceiling. He sat across from her now, elbows resting on his knees, watching the fire like it might answer something he hadn't yet asked. The light caught the scars on his chest, turning them into thin rivers of shadow. Her throat ached with questions she didn't know how to ask. Finally, she said quietly, "That creature in the woods. It wasn't the first time for me." His eyes didn't leave the fire. "I know." She frowned. "How could you?" He turned his head slightly, the corner of his mouth twitching. Not amusement, not exactly. Because it's never the first time for someone like you. Someone like me. The words settled on her like a weight she already carried. She drew in a breath, slow, careful. "Do you know what they called me?" He didn't answer, her eyes fixed on the flames, the memory pulling her backward. "They said I was cursed, that my blood wasn't meant to exist. My mother used to whisper that it was a gift, that the silver flame was our legacy. but I saw the way she looked at me when I lost control. The fear, the disappointment. Her voice wavered. The night they found out what I could do, I was just a child. I remember the heat. It came from nowhere. The world went white, and when it faded, she swallows hard. Half the clearing was ash. The fire crackled louder, as if answering her. I didn't mean to, she continued softly. They were hurting her. I just wanted it to stop. But they looked at me like I was the monster, not them. And maybe they were right, because that night, the flames didn't stop when I wanted them to. Kael's gaze lifted from the fire at last. The intensity there made her chest tighten. He said nothing for a while, just studied her face, her trembling hands. Finally, he murmured, "Monsters don't run from their pain." She met his eyes, the words sinking deep. "Is that what you tell yourself?" His jaw flexed. For a heartbeat, something dark flashed across his expression. Not anger, but memory. "I've told myself worse," he said quietly. The silence between them grew heavy again, not empty, but full of something unspoken. The flames shifted, throwing his shadow across the wall behind him. In the flicker, she saw what the scars didn't say, pain buried beneath muscle and command. She leaned forward slightly. "Who gave you those?" He didn't look surprised by the question, just stared at the fire again, like it was easier to talk to that than to her. "Someone who thought breaking me would make me obedient," he said. "He was wrong. You're Alpha. I was my own long before I killed him." The words were steady, but the tremor beneath them wasn't. She watched him, trying to read the lines that lived behind his silence. The way his hands tightened just before he spoke. The slight roughness in his breath when he mentioned the past. "You've lost people," she said. "Everyone loses people." "No, not like you." The fire popped, scattering sparks across the stones. He glanced up at her then, and for the first time she saw it, the loneliness beneath the armor. The exhaustion of someone who had survived too many winters alone. Her voice softened. "How long have you been running from it?" He exhaled, slow and low. Long enough to know that running doesn't help, but not long enough to stop. She wanted to ask more, to reach into that space he kept guarded, but she didn't, because she knew what it felt like to live behind silence. So instead, she whispered, "You said you've known me since the first moon bled. What did you mean by that?" His gaze lingered on her, longer this time. "The first time I saw you," he said slowly, "you were standing at the edge of the boundary line, barefoot, covered in ash, the night your pack burned." Her breath caught. "You were there?" He nodded once. "I watched you walk away while the others howled for your death. And I thought..." He hesitated. "I thought the moon was cruel to let something like you survive." The words cut and soothed at once. Her voice trembled. "Then why help me now?" He leaned forward, elbows on his knees, eyes fixed on hers. "Because when I looked at you tonight, I realized the moon wasn't cruel. It was giving us a warning." Her heart stumbled in her chest. "A warning?" That something was coming. His voice dropped lower, darker. "And it would start with you." The words hung in the air between them, sharp, heavy, final. She shook her head slowly, more to herself than to him. "I didn't ask for this. None of us do." Her fingers curled into the fur beneath her, the old rage and shame crawling back to the surface. "Do you know what it feels like to be born something you can't even name? To be hated for the blood you didn't choose?" He didn't look away. "Yes." The single word stopped her. She studied him. "Then you know what it's like to never belong." "I made belonging irrelevant." "How?" "By killing the ones who told me I didn't." Her breath caught, not at the violence of it, but at the emptiness in his tone. There was no pride, no satisfaction, just the truth. The firelight painted his face in shades of amber and shadow. For a moment, she saw not the Alpha, but the man beneath, the one who carried ghosts like chains. She reached out before she could think, her hand brushing the air between them. "You don't have to keep fighting alone." His eyes flickered. "You think you could stop me?" "No," she whispered. "I think you could stop yourself." Something unreadable crossed his face, a shift too small to name, but she felt it, a quiet unraveling. Then he stood, turning away. "Rest while you can. We move at dawn." She wanted to protest, to demand answers, but his tone left no room. He walked toward the back of the cave, his silhouette dissolving into the dark. She stayed where she was, staring at the fire until her reflection blurred in the flames. Her mother's voice echoed softly in her mind. "You carry the curse of the silver bloodline." Maybe it had always been a warning, not a blessing. Outside, thunder murmured one last time across the horizon. Distant, patient, waiting. Aria pulled the fur tighter around her shoulders, closing her eyes. But even in sleep, she could feel his gaze lingering in the dark. Silent, heavy. Protective in a way that hurt more than it comforted. Two souls, born of ruin and shadow, trapped in the same storm. And for the first time in years, she wasn't sure which part of her was more dangerous, the power in her blood, or the way her heartbeat followed him. The night deepened into something ancient. The storm had long since died, leaving the forest washed clean, a cathedral of silver and scent. The moon hung low, heavy and round, its light spilling through the branches like liquid metal. Every leaf shimmered as though brushed by frost. Every breath of wind carried the hush of something watching. Aria stirred from restless sleep. Her skin glowed faintly in the moonlight seeping through the cracks of the cave. The fur had slipped from her shoulders. The air bit against her bare arms. Somewhere beyond the fire's dying embers, she felt Kael's presence, steady, silent, waiting. When she opened her eyes fully, she found him already awake, standing near the entrance. The moon silvered the hard edges of his body, turning scars into pale constellations across his skin. He looked carved from the night itself, still but not peaceful. "You're leaving?" Her voice was soft, caught between sleep and suspicion. He didn't turn. "No, we are." Her heart stuttered. "Now? It's barely dawn." "Because it's not dawn." He finally turned, his eyes reflecting the moonlight like molten gold. "It's calling us." "The moon?" "Not the moon," he said. "Something older." Before she could ask, he started walking. She hesitated only a heartbeat before following him out into the night. The forest was different now, quieter, reverent. Mist curled low along the ground, and the air pulsed faintly, as though the earth itself was breathing. Each step she took felt guided by something unseen, each rustle of leaves echoing like a heartbeat beneath her feet. They moved without words. Kael's pace was steady, sure, but his shoulders were tense. Every sense in him was sharpened to the edge of instinct. Aria could feel it too, the pull, the hum, the silent thread tugging them deeper into the wild. The moonlight thickened until it felt tangible, a silvery veil wrapping around them, narrowing the world to sound and breath and pulse. After what felt like hours, the trees thinned. The mist broke apart, revealing a clearing ringed by massive stones. Each one was carved with symbols that glowed faintly, lines of light winding like veins through the rock. In the center lay a pool of water, still as glass, reflecting the full moon perfectly. Its surface shimmered, not with reflection, but with depth, as though the moonlight had sunk beneath the water instead of resting upon it. Kael stopped at the edge of the circle. His voice dropped to a whisper, half to himself. The Vale of Vera. The name felt ancient on his tongue, reverent, almost fearful. Aria moved closer, the air shifting as she crossed the boundary between shadow and light. The moment her bare foot touched the moss within the circle, the runes flared brighter. Kael's hand shot out instinctively. "Wait!" But it was too late. The symbols answered her presence. One by one they ignited, a low hum rippling through the air. The stones vibrated with power that made the hairs on her skin rise. The scent of ozone thickened, light spilled like smoke from the carvings. Her breath caught as she saw it, one symbol glowing stronger than the rest, a crescent entwined with flame. Her hand trembled as she lifted it, revealing the same mark on her wrist, faint, silvery, alive. The glow from the stone reached out to her like recognition. Kael's eyes widened, his instinct screaming to move, but something greater held him still. The air was no longer just air, it was song and memory and pulse. The world around them fell away. The pool stirred, rippling outward without touch. The moon's reflection shattered, and light spilled upward, liquid, alive, forming into the shape of a woman made of starlight. She hovered above the water, her hair flowing like a silver river, her eyes twin eclipses. The air vibrated with her presence, not seen, but felt, like standing beneath thunder before it breaks. Aria couldn't breathe. Her pulse matched the rhythm of the light. The woman spoke, but her lips didn't move. The sound came from everywhere. Inside Aria's mind, inside the earth, inside the pool of her blood. The child of the silver flame will decide the fate of all packs. The words struck through her like lightning. Images exploded behind her eyes. 1,000 wolves beneath a blood-red sky, forest burning, rivers choked with ash, moon splitting into shadow and light. Then she saw herself, standing in the center of it all, fire blazing from her palms, eyes glowing silver white, and beside her, Kael. His expression was unreadable, rage, sorrow, love, all of it, burning together until it was indistinguishable. Her knees buckled, the world trembled. Kael caught her before she hit the ground. The moment his skin met hers, the vision shattered, the light imploding, the pool going still again. Silence crashed back into the clearing. For a long while neither spoke. The night seemed to hold its breath. Kael's voice broke it first, low, raw, almost disbelieving. "You're... her." She looked up, dazed. "Her?" "The prophecy," he said, stepping back like distance could change what he'd seen. "The Flameborn. The one they said would rise when the moon bled silver. The one who would unite or destroy the packs." Aria shook her head, trembling. No, that's not possible, that's..." He cut her off, voice sharp. "You saw it. Don't tell me you didn't." "I didn't ask for this." Her voice cracked, echoing across the stones. "I never wanted any of it. The curse, the fire, the blood." Kael's chest rose and fell hard, the muscle in his jaw tightening. "Destiny doesn't care what you want." Her eyes flashed. "Then I reject it." He stepped closer, his presence suddenly too large, too consuming. "You can't reject what's already in your blood." Her breath came faster. "Then what am I supposed to do? Just become what they feared? Burn everything down again?" Kael's gaze softened for a heartbeat, barely. "Maybe this time you learn to control the fire instead of running from it." The tension between them crackled like static, fragile, dangerous, intimate. The silence stretched until the forest itself seemed to listen. Finally she whispered, "You knew about this, didn't you?" He hesitated. The truth flickered across his face like a shadow. "I knew the prophecy. I didn't know it would be you." Her voice turned to ice. "Would you have saved me if you had?" He didn't answer. The hurt twisted deep in her chest. "I thought so." She turned toward the pool, her reflection fractured by moonlight. "You see a weapon, not a person." "That's not true." She looked back at him. "Then what is true, Kael?" He took a slow step forward, the rawness in his voice catching her off guard. "That I don't know whether I'm supposed to protect you or stop you." The confession landed between them like a blade. Her throat ached. "And which will you choose?" "I don't know," he said. "Yet." Something in her shattered at the honesty of it, the vulnerability he didn't mean to reveal. For a long moment neither moved. The air between them shimmered with heat and fear, and something that felt dangerously close to longing. Then the ground beneath the stones pulsed once, faintly, like a heartbeat. The runes dimmed, returning to their sleeping glow. The vision had ended, but its echo lingered, in the tremor of her hands, the wild rhythm of her pulse, the haunted gold in his eyes. Above them, the moonlight thinned, clouds drifting to swallow its edge. The forest exhaled again, but nothing felt the same. Kael broke the silence first. "We can't stay here. The veil will call others now that it's been awakened." She didn't move. Her gaze remained fixed on the pool. "What if the prophecy's real?" "It is real," he said grimly, "but prophecy doesn't mean inevitability. It only means possibility." She turned toward him, searching his face. "And you think I can choose not to destroy them all?" He studied her, not the trembling girl by the fire, but the force that had just woken the sleeping stones. "I think you already made your first choice by surviving." The words hung in the cool air, strange, comforting, terrible. Aria looked down at her wrist, the mark still faintly glowing beneath her skin. She could almost feel it breathing. A destiny she never asked for, tied to a man she didn't trust, bound to a world that had already tried to burn her. And yet, beneath the fear, beneath the anger, something else stirred. Something fierce. Something inevitable. The air shifted again. Far in the distance, a howl rose, long, mournful, ancient. Another answered, then another. The sound rolled across the forest like thunder. Kael's head snapped toward the sound, every muscle going rigid. "They know." Her heart slammed against her ribs. "Who?" "The ones who still follow the old bloodlines." His voice dropped lower. "They've been waiting for this sign." He turned to her, urgency flickering in his eyes. "We need to move." She looked back at the pool one last time. The reflection stared up at her face, her eyes, and behind them, the ghost of the silver flame. Her whisper barely reached the air. "Then destiny found me after all." Kael stepped closer, his shadow merging with hers. "Then we'll face it together, until it decides which one of us wants more." The wind picked up, scattering leaves across the stones, extinguishing the last traces of glow. Together they vanished into the forest. Two silhouettes swallowed by moonlight, bound by prophecy, chased by fate. But somewhere deep in the earth, beneath the sleeping stones, something ancient stirred. A whisper that carried on the wind. The dawn broke like a wound. Red light bled through the trees, staining the mist in streaks of fire and ash. The forest was too still, not silent but holding its breath, as if the world itself sensed the balance tipping. Kael led her through the thinning woods, every muscle in his body coiled tight. His instinct screamed at him to move faster, to hide her, to get her away from the open. But no matter how far they went, the feeling of eyes on them never faded. Aria kept pace beside him, though her body trembled with exhaustion. The mark on her wrist still pulsed faintly beneath the skin, glowing every time the wind shifted. She'd tried covering it, wrapping it in torn cloth, but it only burned hotter, alive, restless, wild. Her voice broke the silence. "They're coming, aren't they?" Kael didn't answer, his jaw clenched, his eyes scanning the shadows. "Kael," she pressed, "tell me." "Yes." The single word landed like stone. They felt the awakening. "How?" He turned to her, his expression grim. "Because every pack alpha is bound to the moon's pull. When power like that stirs, it doesn't whisper. It roars." The air thickened. A distant sound echoed through the trees, rhythmic, deliberate, not the padding of one wolf, but many. Aria froze. "What is that?" Kael's eyes hardened to molten gold. "Company." Branches snapped, birds scattered into the blood-red dawn. And then, figures emerged from the tree line. Wolves, shifting as they stepped into the clearing. Bodies rippling, bones snapping into place until human forms took shape. naked chests glistened with dew and sweat, their eyes gleaming with feral light. At their head stood a man broader than Kael, his hair silvered with age, but his presence burning with raw dominance. Alpha Thorn, his voice cut through the morning like a blade. So it's true. Kael's stance shifted subtly, protective, deadly. Thorn. Thorn's lip curled. You've gone too far this time. His gaze flicked to Aria, lingering with contempt. A human. Cursed blood. You've doomed us all. Aria's pulse quickened, but she stood her ground, refusing to lower her gaze. Kael's growl rolled from deep in his chest. She's under my protection. Thorn laughed, low and cruel. Your protection, or your curse. The warriors behind him stirred, growling low, the sound of a living thing that vibrated through the soil. She is no curse, Kael said, his voice darkening. She's a prophecy. Thorn's eyes flashed crimson. Exactly. He stepped forward. The prophecy that ends us. Did you think we wouldn't feel it when she awakened the veil? Aria flinched. Kael's fingers twitched at his side. Thorn, he said, voice measured, dangerous. Walk away. You think you can command me, Kael? After breaking every law our kind stands on? You've aligned yourself with a half-blood flame. Kael's eyes burned brighter. Enough. But Thorn wasn't finished. He tilted his head, his smile all teeth. No wonder your pack fell. You were too weak to kill what should have never been born. The insult struck deep. Not just words, but memory. Kael's control snapped. The growl that left him was pure, primal fury. It happened in a blur. Claws, motion, thunder. Kael lunged. Thorn met him halfway, and the impact cracked the ground beneath them. Wolves shifted instantly. Chaos exploding around the clearing. Snarls filled the air. Bodies collided in a frenzy of teeth and claws. Aria stumbled back, her pulse racing. She could feel their rage, the storm of it, seeping into her skin. Every instinct screamed at her to run, to hide, but another voice, deeper and older, whispered, No, stand. Kael fought like a force of nature, every movement precise, brutal, unrelenting. His claws flashed silver in the morning light, his body a weapon forged by fury and loss. He struck Thorn again and again, but the elder Alpha was stronger than he looked. Their roars tore through the air like thunderclaps. Aria's hands trembled as she watched Kael falter. A momentary stumble, blood streaking his side. Something inside her broke. A surge of heat ignited beneath her skin. The mark on her wrist flared, burning through the cloth, the fire crawling up her arm like liquid light. Aria! Kael's voice was a warning, but it came too late. The power burst free. Silver fire erupted from her palms, slicing through the clearing like lightning. The wolves scattered, yelps turning to screams as the energy seared the ground where they'd stood. Trees caught flame, but not ordinary fire. It burned cold, ethereal, devouring shadow instead of wood. Thorn stumbled back, eyes wide. What are you? Aria stood in the center of it all, her eyes glowing white-hot, her hair whipped by invisible wind. For a heartbeat, she looked almost divine, untouchable. But power, once lost, demands a price. The flames around her pulsed erratically, consuming too much, too fast. Kael staggered toward her, shouting above the roar, Aria! Control it! I can't. Her voice broke, trembling with fear and strain. It's not stopping. He reached her, ignoring the heat that scorched his skin. His hands closed over hers, grounding her, pulling her back. Look at me, he commanded. Her gaze met his. The fire faltered, flickering. Breathe, he said, voice rough but steady. You're not burning the world. You're holding it. Control it. She gasped, clutching his arms, forcing the chaos inward, her veins alight. Slowly, painfully, the flames receded. Smoke curled into the morning air. The clearing fell still. Only the smell of scorched earth remained. Silence. Then, horror. The wolves who had attacked now stood in a broken half-circle, staring at her like she was something unnatural. Even those loyal to Kael had stepped back, fear thick in their eyes. Aria's breathing came shallow, her body trembling from the aftermath. "I didn't mean to..." Kael's grip tightened on her shoulders, steadying her. "Don't." His voice was low, guttural. "Don't apologize for surviving." Thorn rose slowly, blood streaking his face, his tone dripping with venom. "You've made your choice, Kael. You stand with her. Then you stand against all of us." Kael met his gaze, unflinching. "So be it." Thorn's smirk twisted into something cruel. "They'll come for you now. The Council, the High Alphas. They'll tear you both apart before they let prophecy rise." He turned, motioning to his men. "Let them live, for now. The moon will judge them soon enough." Then he vanished into the forest, his pack following like ghosts dissolving into fog. The silence that followed was heavier than the battle itself. Kael released her slowly, his hand still shaking from the power he'd felt. The world smelled of iron and ash. The sun had risen fully now, gilding the clearing in light that felt almost mocking. Aria's knees gave out. She sank to the ground, burying her face in her hands. "I didn't want to hurt anyone." Kael crouched beside her. "You didn't start this fight." Her voice cracked. "But I ended it." He studied her, the tremor in her shoulders, the streaks of soot on her skin, the faint glow still lingering in her veins. "You saved my life." She looked up, eyes glistening. "And doomed yours." Kael's jaw tightened. "Mine was never safe to begin with." For a long while, neither spoke. The forest slowly began to breathe again. Birds returning, wind stirring leaves. But everything had changed. Aria turned her head, gazing at the blackened circle of ground where her power had flared. "They'll come for us now, won't they?" Kael nodded once. "For both of us." Her throat worked as she swallowed. "Then what happens next?" He stood, his shadow cutting across her face. "Now," he said quietly, "we stop running and start surviving." She stared at him, the weight of his words settling deep into her chest. The mark on her wrist throbbed once, a pulse, a promise. Somewhere beyond the forest, the world was already stirring, alphas whispering of omens, councils convening, the prophecy spreading like wildfire. But here, in this clearing of ash and blood, two exiles stood side by side, the cursed and the chosen, united by the storm they'd unleashed. And as the wind carried the faint echo of distant howls, Kael turned toward her and said quietly, almost reverently, "They think they've seen the beginning. They haven't." The fire had burned low, reduced to embers that breathed in the draught of the cave. Shadows bent along the stone, twisting and retreating with each flicker of light. Aria sat curled against the wall, her knees drawn to her chest. The mountain air was colder now, sharp and dry, and every breath she took fogged faintly before disappearing into the dark. Her shoulder ached where Kael's stitches pulled tight, a rhythmic reminder of what he'd done and what he hadn't said. Kael sat across from her, silent, a figure carved from stillness. The faint glow from the fire etched the planes of his face, the strong jaw, the streak of gold in his irises catching the light like metal beneath water. He hadn't asked about her power. He hadn't asked what she'd seen in the clearing, or what it meant that her blood had flared silver. And that silence, that restraint, felt more dangerous than any question he could have asked. Her voice broke it first. "You keep staring." His gaze flicked up from the fire. "You keep flinching." "I'm not flinching." He tilted his head slightly. "Then why can I hear your heartbeat trying to escape your ribs?" The words slid through the air like a touch. Her pulse jumped just to spite him. She wanted to look away but didn't. The quiet stretched. Kael's eyes softened, the kind of soft that came before confession. "You're afraid of me." She opened her mouth, then closed it again. There was no point denying it. "I don't know what you are," she said finally. One moment you're saving me, the next you're looking at me like what? Like you're trying to decide if you should kiss me or kill me. A muscle worked in his jaw. He didn't look away. Maybe I am. The truth of it landed heavy between them, and yet, instead of fear, something else stirred low in her stomach, a pull, raw and magnetic. Her wolf rose inside her, restless. It recognized something her mind didn't. Kael moved closer, not enough to touch, just enough for the air to change. The warmth from the fire brushed across his shoulders, drawing the faint sheen of rain still drying on his skin. "You don't have to trust me," he said quietly, "but if you're going to stay alive, you'll have to follow me." Aria held his gaze. "And if I don't, then you'll die." The words were blunt, unsoftened, but there was no cruelty in them, only truth. Aria drew a slow breath. "You think I'm that weak?" Kael's expression shifted, something unreadable flickering in his eyes. "No, I think you're strong enough to get yourself killed." That earned a faint, unwilling smile from her. "You're terrible at comfort." He huffed something that might have been a laugh. "You want comfort. You should have stayed human." Her smile faded. "I was never just human." The admission hung between them. He studied her in silence, waiting, but she said nothing more. Instead, she rose and walked to the cave entrance. The night stretched vast before her. The world below wrapped in fog and moonlight, the faint sound of wolves echoing far in the valley. Kael followed her gaze. "They'll be tracking us by now." "I know." "You regret saving them?" Her eyes narrowed slightly. "You mean burning the ground they stood on?" "I mean sparing Thorn when you could have killed him." She turned to him, surprise flickering through her features. "You notice that?" "I notice everything about you." It wasn't a threat, it was something else entirely. A confession he hadn't meant to give voice to. Her breath caught. The air between them shifted again, a current invisible but undeniable. Kael stepped closer, slow, deliberate. "You could have ended him. Why didn't you?" Aria's eyes dropped to the ground. "Because I didn't want to become what they think I am." When she looked up again, something like pain moved through his gaze, brief, human, devastating. "You already carry more control than most alphas," he said, "and more heart than any of them ever will." She stared at him, searching for sarcasm, but found none. Only sincerity, fierce and unguarded. "Don't do that," she said softly. "Do what?" "Make me believe you see something worth saving." Kael's brow furrowed. "You think I'd lie to you?" "I think you've had to survive." The truth in her tone hit him harder than any blow. For a moment, his composure fractured. The alpha stripped away, leaving only the man beneath, scarred and uncertain. He stepped closer again, close enough that the scent of him, wild rain-soaked pine and heat, filled her lungs. "I don't want to lie to you," he said. Her chest rose and fell too quickly. "Then don't." Something inside him broke. He reached up slowly, brushing a strand of damp hair from her face, his fingers grazing her temple. She didn't pull away. The touch lingered, not possessive, not gentle, just real. The kind of touch that made the world shrink to the space between two breaths. Aria's heart stumbled. Her wolf pressed harder now, pushing against the barrier of her skin, aching for him in a way she didn't understand. Kael's thumb traced the curve of her jaw, slow, reverent. "You don't know what you're doing," she whispered. "Don't I?" Her pulse fluttered against his wrist. "You'll regret this." "I already do." And then the distance vanished. The kiss wasn't soft. I wasn't hesitant. It was the kind born of exhaustion, defiance, hunger. Two people trying to forget everything that waited outside that cave. Her fingers found his shirt, clutching at it like an anchor. His hand slid to her back, pulling her closer, and for a moment she forgot the blood on her hands, the prophecy burning in her veins. There was only this, the warmth of him, the taste of rain and fire, the ache that felt like breathing for the first time. But it didn't last. Kael broke the kiss first, pulling back just enough to breathe, his forehead resting against hers. "This is a mistake," he murmured. "Then stop me," she whispered back. He didn't. Instead, he let out a slow, shaky exhale, the sound of a man losing a battle he'd already surrendered to. When he finally stepped away, the cold rushed in between them, sharp as guilt. She turned toward the fire, arms wrapping around herself. "You said not to trust you." Kael's voice came low, hoarse. "I said you didn't have to. Not that I didn't want you to." Aria closed her eyes. "What are we doing, Kael?" "Surviving," he said. She shook her head. "This feels like something else." He didn't answer. The silence stretched, heavy with everything neither dared to say. Outside, dawn began to stain the horizon, a thin line of silver cutting through the dark. Kael's eyes lingered on her profile, lit by the fire's dying glow. "They'll come for us soon. I know. And when they do, you can still walk away." She turned to him, something fierce sparking in her gaze. "You think I'm running again?" He held her stare. "I think you're not ready for what happens if you stay." Her lips parted, but no sound came out. The truth of it was too close, too raw. Kael stepped back, gathering his weapons. His voice when he spoke was quiet, controlled, but it trembled at the edges. "You should sleep. I'll take my first watch." Aria didn't move. "Kael." "Don't," he said too quickly. "If I look at you again, I won't stop." The words cut through the air like a blade. Aria's heart twisted. "Then maybe don't stop." Kael froze, back still turned. For a moment, the mountain was utterly silent. Then he exhaled, a long, shuddering breath. And without another word, he walked toward the cave mouth, leaving her alone with the embers. The firelight flickered across her face, catching the tears she hadn't realized she was shedding. She pressed a trembling hand to her lips, still tasting him, wild and unforgotten. And in that quiet, she understood something terrible. The danger wasn't out there anymore. It was here, in the space where trust had begun to bloom. The night had been waiting for this. The sky hung split open, a wound of crimson light spilling across the valley. The blood moon rose slowly and terribly above the ridgeline, staining the river red, painting every stone, every face in its unholy glow. The wolves had gathered beneath it, hundreds of them, fur glinting like steel, eyes glowing gold and amber in the dark. The air trembled with growls, whispers, the restless scrape of claws on stone. At the heart of it all stood Kael, and beside him, Aria. Her heartbeat stuttered beneath her ribs. Every instinct screamed run, but her feet refused to move. Around them, the circle of the council closed tighter, voices weaving together in suspicion and venom. "She carries the cursed mark," someone hissed. "She burned her own pack alive," another voice growled. Each word landed like a blow. Aria felt the world tilt beneath her. Her throat tightened, her fingers trembling where they hung by her sides. She wanted to deny it, to scream that they were wrong. But the mark on her wrist burned brighter under the blood moon's light, silver veins threading like fire through her skin. Kael said nothing. His silence was the loudest sound in the clearing. The oldest council elder, a gaunt wolf with pale eyes and a voice like gravel, stepped forward. "You brought her here, Kael. You broke the ancient vow. A human with cursed blood cannot walk among alphas. You've doomed us all." Kael's jaw clenched. "She's not cursed." The elder's eyes narrowed. "Then what is she?" The question cut through the air like a knife. Every gaze turned to her, accusing, hungry. Aria felt her lungs shrink. She looked at Kael, searching for something, an answer, a shield, anything. He didn't move. For the first time since she'd met him, he looked uncertain, torn. And that hesitation, that single heartbeat of doubt, was enough to break her. You knew, she whispered. Kael's head snapped toward her. Aria. You knew they'd come for me. Her voice trembled, low and sharp, barely contained. You knew what I was, and you hid it. I was trying to protect you. Her breath caught, part laugh, part sob. Protect me? You've been protecting your secret, Kael. That's not... Then why does it feel like I'm your sin to hide? The crowd murmured. The blood moon pulsed like a heartbeat above them, red light crawling over the ground, seeping into the air. Kael took a step toward her. Aria, listen to me. But she was already shaking her head. I listen to you, every night. Every lie is wrapped in silence. His hands flexed at his sides, as if reaching for her, as if unsure whether to hold her or let her go. You don't understand. No, she cut in, her voice rising, trembling on the edge of breaking. I do understand. I'm not your prophecy to protect or your mistake to bury. I'm the thing you were afraid to claim. The world seemed to stop breathing, and then, her power stirred. The mark on her wrist flared white-hot, light spilling from her veins like molten silver. The ground beneath her feet cracked, lines of fire spreading outward through the stone circle. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Kael's baiter, a scarred wolf named Rian, stepped forward, teeth bared. There it is, the cursed power. She's the reason the storms return, the reason the earth trembles. Kael moved faster than thought, shoving Rian back with a growl that shook the air. Enough, but it was too late. The fear had already taken root. Wolves began to shift, growls turning to howls, chaos rippling like wildfire. Aria stumbled backward, clutching her arm, the glow too bright to hide. Kael! He turned to her, eyes wide, torn between duty and desperation. You have to control it. I can't. You can. His voice cracked, fierce, pleading. Look at me. Breathe. Her power surged again, answering not him but the moon, the blood moon above them thrumming in rhythm with her heart. The fire spread faster, snaking through the ground, curling around the sacred stones until they blazed silver white. The council roared in panic. Wolves leapt back, their forms half-shifted, eyes wild. Kael reached her, grabbing her wrists. His skin sizzled where it touched hers, smoke rising between their palms. Aria, stop! Tears streaked her cheeks, gleaming like mercury. You told me I wasn't alone. You're not. Then why are you standing with them? The question hit like thunder. Kael flinched. Behind him, Ryan snarled, voice rising above the chaos. Alpha Kael has broken the code. He defends the cursed one. And that was when the final thread snapped. A dozen wolves lunged at once, not at Kael, but at her. The world erupted. Kael shifted mid-motion, his roar shaking the mountains, black fur flashing under crimson light. He met the first attacker head-on, claws tearing, blood splattering across the stones. Aria stumbled backward, her vision fracturing. Red and white and fire. The world became sound and heat and betrayal. Kael fought like a storm, but for every wolf he struck down, 2 more came. Their snarls echoed in her bones, and through it all, her power screamed inside her, begging to be released. When Ryan lunged for her throat, she didn't think, she answered. Silver fire exploded from her body, flinging him back into the air. The ground cracked wide open, splitting the stone altar in 2. Light poured out, swallowing everything in its path. When the smoke cleared, the world was silent. Bodies lay scattered across the clearing. The blood moon hung still above, bathing everything in ghostly red. Kael stood in the center, panting, blood running down his arm. His eyes met hers. For one breathless moment, she thought he would come to her, that he'd say something, anything, that would make this right. But behind him, the council rose again. Wounded, furious, united in fear. Look what she's done, one hissed. Kael's lips parted, his hands trembled. His eyes were no longer the eyes of the man who had held her in the dark. They were the eyes of an alpha weighing the cost of mercy. And that was when she understood. He wasn't choosing between her and them. He was choosing between love and survival. Aria stepped back, shaking her head. Don't. Aria, don't you dare say my name like it still means something. Her voice broke on the last word. The tears came then, not red, not clear, but silver, burning trails down her cheeks. The air shuddered. The mark on her wrist blazed once more, brighter than the moon itself. Kael took a step forward. Please, she whispered, barely audible. You were supposed to be different. Then she turned and ran. The world blurred, trees, light, shadow, her power spilling out behind her in waves, lighting the forest in ghost fire. Wolves howled in the distance, but none followed. The night swallowed her whole. By the time Kael reached the edge of the clearing, she was gone, her scent already fading into the wind. He stood there, chest heaving, the blood moon bleeding down on him like judgment. And for the first time in his life, Kael, the alpha who never bowed, never broke, sank to his knees. The fire in the stones dimmed, the world fell silent. And somewhere deep in the forest, Aria ran until her lungs burned, her tears cutting silver paths through the dirt. She didn't know where she was going, only that she couldn't stop. Not now. Because love had betrayed her, because destiny had lied, because the fire inside her was no longer asking to be controlled. It was asking to be unleashed. The world was ash. Smoke coiled between the trees like ghosts unwilling to leave. The scent of iron and blood thickened the night. The blood moon hung swollen above the ruins of the council grounds, a silent witness to everything lost. Kael's army had fallen. Bodies littered the broken circle, fur matted, eyes glassy. The once mighty were reduced to shadows, their howls replaced by a hollow silence that trembled through the earth. The mountain itself seemed to grieve. Stones cracked, trees bowed, the air heavy with despair. And from the heart of that ruin, something ancient stirred. A sound, low, resonant, like the earth drawing breath before a scream. The Shadow King had risen. He emerged from the split earth, his form woven from darkness and flame, taller than any wolf, eyes like coals drowning in night. Smoke clung to him like armor. His voice was not a sound but a pressure, a weight on the soul. You call yourselves alphas, he murmured, his tone dripping with mockery, but you kneel before the old blood still. Kael, bloodied, half-shifted, staggered to his feet. His once black fur was streaked with crimson. His chest heaved, eyes locked on the shadowed figure. This ends with me, Kael rasped. The Shadow King smiled, a cruel curl of smoke. No, little wolf, it ends with her. He turned his head toward the tree line, and the world itself seemed to still. Because through the veil of smoke and flame, Aria walked, barefoot, barely human. Her silver fire moved with her, not like light, but like life itself, threads of energy weaving around her limbs, setting the ground alight with every step. Her eyes glowed with twin moons of molten white. Her hair, once wild and tangled, shimmered like liquid starlight. The air bent around her, heat and wind colliding. Kael froze. His breath left him in a single broken whisper. Aria. She didn't look at him. Her gaze was fixed on the creature of smoke and shadow, her expression unreadable, not fury, not grief, but something greater, something absolute. The Shadow King tilted his head. So the cursed blood breathes after all. I am not cursed, she said quietly, her voice carrying through the smoke like a blade drawn from its sheath. He laughed, the sound cracking the air. You burn your own, destroy all that touches you, and still you deny what you are. Her hands trembled, not from fear but from the force building beneath her skin. The silver glow brightened, spilling outward, licking across the ground like lightning. I am not your curse, she said louder now. I am your reckoning. And the world moved. The ground split, roots tearing free from the soil, pulsing with silver veins. The air screamed, 1,000 unseen spirits howling in unison. Kael fell to one knee, the force pressing him down. Wolves that still breathed whimpered, backing away as the light consumed the clearing. The Shadow King raised a hand, dark flame twisting through his fingers. "You think light can destroy me?" "No," Aria said, stepping closer. "I think I can." Then she unleashed it. Silver fire tore from her body, a blinding storm that devoured the darkness. It wasn't magic, it was memory, pain, love, rage, everything she had ever denied erupting at once. The light met the shadow with a roar that split the mountains. The impact flung Kael back, slammed him into stone. The ground heaved, the sky cracked, the blood moon wavered in its throne of red. The Shadow King staggered, smoke shredding from his form. He snarled, lunging, but the fire met him head-on. Every heartbeat became thunder, every breath a scream. Aria's voice rose through it all. Not a cry, but a declaration that reverberated through the bones of the world. "I am not your sacrifice." The fire exploded outward, not in destruction but rebirth. Every fallen wolf stirred, the dead roots around them glowed, sprouting leaves of silver light. The rivers boiled, then ran clear again. The sky tore apart, and the blood moon cracked like glass, spilling its color into the dawn. The Shadow King howled, not in rage this time, but in fear. His form flickered, unraveling. "You cannot exist without me," he hissed. "You are me." She stepped forward, fire rippling from her feet, eyes burning bright. "No, I was what you made me believe I was." Then she drove her hand into his chest, and the world went white. A silence followed. Not emptiness, but peace. The kind that comes after storms, when even the air forgets how to move. The light faded slowly. Kael opened his eyes, his body trembling, his heart pounding in disbelief. The clearing was unrecognizable. No blood, no ash, no shadow. Only stillness. And there, at the center, Aria stood. Her silver flame had dimmed, now soft, gentle, but still alive. Her skin glowed faintly, veins threaded with light. Her hair drifted around her like mist. Kael rose unsteadily, every muscle aching. "Aria," she turned to him, and for a heartbeat, he saw her as she was, not the frightened girl who had run, not the broken soul who had wept under the moon, but something new, not a wolf, not human, something more. He took a step forward. "You did it." Her expression softened, though her eyes held sorrow too deep for words. "No," she said quietly. "We did. You just forgot who you were fighting for." Kael's throat tightened. "I never stopped fighting for you." She shook her head slowly, the faintest smile ghosting her lips. "You fought to protect what you loved, but sometimes love has to burn before it can be saved." He reached for her, but his hand stopped inches away, heat humming between them. The air around her shimmered. "Aria, come back," he whispered. Her gaze flickered toward the sky, the blood moon's remnants dissolving into morning light. "I can't." "Why?" "Because the fire doesn't belong to me anymore." "It belongs to the world." Kael swallowed hard. "Then let me go with you." For a moment, the firelight in her eyes wavered. Emotion flickered through her. Longing, regret, love. "You already have," she murmured. And then, light, soft, slow, endless. The wind stirred her hair, lifted the silver threads until she looked like part of the dawn itself. The glow spread from her body, rippling across the clearing, seeping into the ground, the trees, the rivers, leaving life in her wake. Kael reached forward, and his fingers met nothing but warmth. Aria was gone. Only the scent of pine and smoke remained. The world exhaled. The wolves rose, weak but alive, their fur catching the morning sun. The mountains were quiet again, not dead, but reborn. Kael stood alone in the silence, his head bowed, and though the fire was gone, he could still feel her, in the wind that whispered through the trees, in the heartbeat of the earth, in the silver light that touched the horizon. She was no longer the cursed girl, no longer the hunted mate, no longer bound by the prophecy of others. She was the flame that refused to die. The balance was restored. The world was remade. And somewhere, far beyond the dawn, a whisper stirred the wind, soft, defiant, eternal. I am not your sacrifice. Ash drifted through the moonlight like slow, dying snow. The forest was quiet now. Too quiet. The kind of silence that comes not from peace but from loss. The kind that hums in your bones and makes the world feel too big, too empty. The blood moon was gone. The fire was out. And still, her scent lingered. Pine, smoke, silver. Wolves knelt in the clearing, heads bowed, chests rising with shallow breaths. Not in worship, not in fear, but in grief, because even victory has its ghosts. Kael stood at the edge of the ruined circle, the dawn bleeding across his skin. His armor was gone, his power drained, his hands trembled. And there, on his forearm, where her mark had once burned bright, only a faint shimmer remained. He ran his fingers over it, tracing the fading crescent and flame. It pulsed once, weakly, like a dying heartbeat, then vanished. Gone. The wind stirred, carrying whispers through the trees. For a moment, it almost sounded like her laughter. Soft, wild, untamed. The way it used to be before the world tore them apart. Kael's throat tightened. Aria, he breathed. Her name broke him open every time. He closed his eyes, and the world blurred. In the darkness behind his lids, he saw her again, standing in the storm, defiant, afraid, glorious, the girl who had turned her curse into light, and for a heartbeat, he thought he could hear her voice, clear, gentle, somewhere between sorrow and forgiveness. You can't curse love, Kael. You can only fear it. The word struck deeper than any blade. Because he had feared it, feared her. The power she carried, the fire she was. He had tried to contain it, protect it, tame it. But love was never meant to be contained. It was meant to burn. Kael fell to his knees, fingers curling into the ash. Around him, the wolves lifted their heads, watching in silence as the alpha they had followed, the warrior they had feared, finally broke. He whispered into the dawn, "If love is the flame, then let me burn too." A single ray of light pierced through the clouds, landing on the place where she had stood, the heart of the battle, now soft with dew. The light shimmered, silver and gold, and for a breathless moment, he thought he saw her again. Just her outline, her hair caught in the wind, her smile small but certain. Then the light shifted, and she was gone. Only the echo of her words remained, drifting across the mountains like a song the world would never forget. You can't curse love, Kael. You can only fear it. The narrator's voice softens now, lower, intimate, drawing closer as though speaking directly into the listener's ear. Would you have chosen her, or feared her too? A pause, long, deliberate, the kind that makes the heart hold still. The wolves begin to howl then, one by one, low and mournful, their voices weaving through the mountains like a hymn for what was lost and what was yet to come. And beneath their song, you can almost hear the heartbeat of the world returning. Slow, steady, alive, because love never truly dies. It only changes shape. Sometimes it burns, sometimes it heals, and sometimes, if you're lucky, it becomes legend. If this story lit something inside you, stay. Subscribe to Wild Moon Narratives, because here, we don't just tell stories, we tell the ones that burn. The music swells, soft piano under slow, haunting strings. The wolves' howls fade into the distance. The wind carries her voice one last time, quiet, fading, eternal. I am not your sacrifice. Then silence, just the beat of your own heart. And the lingering question that won't let you go. The dawn that followed was thin and pale, stretching across the wounded land like a breath that didn't know whether to live or die. Smoke curled over the ruins of the battlefield, soft and ghost-like, the remnants of what once burned bright under the blood moon. The wolves had gone quiet. Even the wind held its breath. Kael stood at the ridge until the sun broke the horizon, until every shadow that had once held her name dissolved into light. His chest ached with the kind of pain that doesn't leave bruises but never fades either. Somewhere in the distance, a river whispered through the valley, carrying away the last trace of ash. But something inside him still hummed. Faint, defiant, alive. Not gone. Not yet. Because love, he knew now, didn't die with the body. It lingered. It transformed. It found new skin to wear, and far beyond the mountains, beyond the reach of his scent or his sorrow, something ancient stirred. The desert stretched endless under the dying moon, dunes rippling like waves of molten silver. The night air shimmered with heat and silence, and in the heart of that emptiness, a single figure knelt in the sand. Her body was still, her hair whipped wild around her face, long and dark, clinging to the sweat that glistened on her skin. Her breath came slow, steady, like she was waking from a long, impossible dream. Beneath the surface of her shoulder, light pulsed, faint at first, then brighter. A brand, shaped like a crescent flame, burned through her skin. It glowed the same way Aria's mark once had. The same color, the same rhythm, the same fire. The sand trembled around her fingers. Each grain seemed to respond, rising and falling with her heartbeat. The wind shifted direction, bending toward her as if summoned. Her lips parted, and her eyes opened. Molten gold, alive, ancient, beautiful, and terrifying. The kind of eyes that remembered things the world had forgotten. She lifted her head slowly, scanning the horizon. The moon hung low, a bleeding wound in the sky, its reflection flickering across her irises. She whispered something. A name, maybe. Though the wind devoured it before it reached the stars. Her hands curled into fists. The mark on her shoulder flared. Brighter now, searing, unstoppable. The earth beneath her cracked. The flames that once belonged to another woman, to Aria, awakened in her veins. Silver merged with gold, spiraling across her skin in patterns no human tongue could name. And in that moment, the world seemed to pause. The air grew heavy with power. The sand hissed, the stars blinked. A voice, not her own, echoed through the dark. She was not the only one born of fire. It wasn't a warning, it was a promise. The desert answered with a tremor so deep it rattled the bones of the earth. Mountains quaked, the dunes rolled like an ocean tide, and somewhere far beyond sight, in the forgotten forests Kael once called home, a wolf lifted its head and howled. Low, long, mourning. But beneath it, something new. A second howl. Younger, sharper, female. The two cries wove together, echoing across continents. A sound older than time, older than prophecy itself. The woman in the sand tilted her head, listening. A smile ghosted across her lips. Not cruel, not kind, but knowing. She pressed her palm to the earth. The flame mark on her shoulder flared once more. And beneath her touch, the desert began to bloom. Not with flowers, but with fire. Small sparks burst from the ground, spiraling upward into the air, forming trails of light that swayed like dancing spirits. The flames didn't burn her, they obeyed her. In that impossible moment, her shadow stretched across the dunes, tall, fierce, crowned in light. The whispers of the wind gathered around her, speaking a name no mortal ear should know. Ceres. Her head turned toward the east, toward the land beyond the mountains, toward the place where Aria had fallen. And her voice, low and rich with quiet fury, broke the silence. The bloodline never ended. It only forgot its name. The moonlight fractured across her skin, reflecting 1,000 shades of gold. The sand rippled again, carrying her words farther, across lands, rivers, ruins. They thought the flame died with her. They were wrong. The wind gathered strength, a storm forming out of nothing, spiraling upward, swallowing the stars. Lightning cracked the sky. The woman rose to her feet. Her silhouette burned against the storm, a living echo of the one who came before. And then, a sound, a distant, resonant howl, not of mourning this time, but of recognition, a wolf's call, familiar, ancient. Kael's voice carried on the wind, though he was miles away. He didn't know why he howled, only that something inside him, something half love, half destiny, demanded it. The woman's eyes flared brighter in response. She turned her head toward the sound, her lips curling in a half-smile that held the weight of centuries. So, the Alpha still remembers. The desert roared. The moon broke through the clouds, a pale scar in the heavens, and as the storm gathered around her, the wind carried a final whisper, half prophecy, half warning, half invitation. The Alpha's human mate, forbidden by blood, bound by fate, will rise again. The flames collapsed inward, vanishing, leaving only the faint shimmer of heat across the dunes. The woman stood alone under the bleeding moon, the mark on her shoulder pulsing with every breath. She closed her eyes. The earth stilled. The night returned to silence, but the world would never be the same again. Because somewhere, deep beneath the surface, the fire had begun to stir once more, ancient and hungry. Waiting for the next moon, for the next heartbeat, for the next story. And as the screen fades to black, the narrator's voice returns, soft, knowing, almost smiling. The blood moon fades, but its promise lingers. This is Wild Moon Narratives, and this isn't over. The sound of a wolf's howl pierces the silence one last time, raw, defiant, eternal. Then nothing, only darkness, and the echo of destiny breathing just beneath it. Silence falls, not the silence of peace, but the kind that hums with unfinished magic. The blood moon is gone. The stars return, faint and trembling. Across the scorched valley, the ashes of what was beginning to cool. Kael stands at the edge of it all, his chest rising slow, his pulse steady but hollow. Her scent, wild, electric, unforgettable, still lingers in the air. It clings to him like a ghost that refuses to leave. He lowers his head, and for the first time, the Alpha bows not to a king, not to a god, but to the memory of a woman who refused to die quietly. Aria, his curse, his salvation, his flame. The wolves gather behind him in silence, eyes glinting in the half-light. None speak, none need to, because every creature that breathes under this sky has felt it, the shift, the balance breaking. The old power is returning. A new era has begun, and none of them know if they will survive it. The wind shifts. Somewhere far beyond the horizon, a whisper rides the air. Faint but fierce, a woman's voice breaking through the veil between worlds. You can't curse love, Kael. You can only fear it. The words hit him like a heartbeat, slow, certain, eternal. Kael closes his eyes, and for one fragile moment he lets himself remember what it felt like to be more than an alpha, to be a man, to love, to lose, to hope. When he opens them again, the moonlight catches on the scar over his chest, the mark she left, still glowing faintly with her flame. He exhales, the sound rough, reverent. Then, softly, a whisper to the wind, to her, to the endless night. If you're still out there, I'll find you. The howl that follows shatters the quiet, deep, primal, aching with promise. The pack joins him, their voices rising into the sky, a chorus of grief and loyalty and something else, rebirth. The camera drifts upward, the valley shrinks below, and in the farthest distance, across the dunes, beneath the dying moon, another heartbeat answers, The screen fades to black, and the narrator's voice returns, slow, intimate, charged with prophecy. The blood moon has fallen, the curse has been broken, or perhaps only reborn. But remember this, fire never dies. It only waits for someone brave enough to claim it. A pause, the faint sound of wind over sand. And somewhere out there another flame has awakened. The distant echo of a wolf's howl rolls across the soundscape, one last, lingering note that fades into silence. Then, softly, the final words. This is Wild Moon Narratives. Thank you for walking beneath the blood moon with us. But don't rest yet, listener.